So it's finally getting cold outside. Winter's just around the corner. I don't know where you guys live, but I'm in California, and it is finally getting cold and chilly out there. And I'm bundling up and wearing warmer clothes. And I like to pull out the strongest fragrances during the season as well. But you know what? I don't have a rule, okay? I don't mind wearing strong fragrances when it's warm outside. But generally, most people wear the stronger, most intense fragrances, the beast mode, nuclear fragrances during the winter months, and that's what I've got here for you. I've got a top 20 list. If you're curious to find out about these fragrances, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's Sebastian talking about nuclear fragrances, beast mode fragrances. These fragrances have great longevity. They also have great projection and sillage. These are the kind of fragrances you want to wear to have people smell you coming around the corner. The ones that are going to have the longest, longevity, the best longevity. So I've got a list of 20 fragrances with a couple of bonus options after the outro. And the way I'm doing this, it's a ranked list. Least beastly, least nuclear to most nuclear. Let's get started. First fragrance I'm talking about is from the house of MONTALE. I'd forgotten about this. This is Sensual Instinct. Sure, it does have that little bit of BACCARAT Rouge-like vibe, and I think this is that Ambroxan kind of muskiness that's in here that gives me that longevity. These are the kind of notes that I think last a long time. But this is kind of gourmandish and also rosy. It kind of does hint at something like intense cafe at the same time, but it's rose cacao, tiramisu, vanilla oakmoss, amber, coffee, patchouli, saffron, cardamom, and whiskey. Yum fragrance. I can't believe I've forgotten about it. I really love that. I think it smells fantastic, but let's move on to the house of NARCOTICA. This is DULCE DIABLO, this one right here. Are you guys familiar with this house? They have some great fragrances, and this is still my favorite fragrance from this house. It's a gourmand, but very, very intense. This fragrance has such a big cloud that don't spray it near and anywhere near your mouth because it just kind of like blooms and just goes everywhere. But it's a gourmand in the end. It's a boozy gourmand with cognac, cacao, sandalwood, rum, dried apricots, chocolate, vanilla, apricot, patchouli, honey, tonka. So it has fresh and dried apricots. So it does have a fruitiness. It does have a holiday vibe. It's boozy and delicious, fruity and creamy, but very, very long lasting, very, very intense. And remember, as I said, does have a cloud. So be careful where you spray this. Spray it away from you, because it's going to go all over. And, you know, it's super delicious, but don't get it in your mouth. It's not that kind of delicious. So, Dulce Diablo from the house of NARCOTICA. Next, going to the house of Thomas de Monaco with Raw Gold, the newest one here, the newest version. This happens to be one of my favorite fragrances of the last couple of years. I love the way this fragrance has been blended. The combination of the honeyed notes with the resins and the patchouli is fantastic. I really love that about this. It also has great longevity. This new version is not as animalic as the previous version, and basically the patchouli in here has also gotten a bit of chocolate cakey, which I quite like, but still the honey is pretty prominent in this. You can totally, experience it against that patchouli, but in the end it's a Opoponax, patchouli, honey, suede, tonka, coffee, civet, and liqueur. I think the civet is not in this version though. I think this version is not necessarily animalic. I believe the notes that I just read to you are the notes for the previous version, because I don't get much animalics here. It's mostly a very dense patchouli, a bit chocolatey against that Opoponax and honey. Yum. It's a great fragrance, really great longevity. It's raw gold. Then we're going to the house of Parfums Marly, Carlisle. This to me still is pretty intense. It's a very intense, long-lasting fragrance. One of the most intense from this house, still to this day. I like it. But I haven't bought a new version, so I don't know what the latest are, but the one I have has really great longevity. And I like the smell as well. In the end, it's patchouli with tonka, vanilla, Opoponax, nutmeg, green apples, rose, osmanthus, davana, and saffron. The combination is great. It's a bit woody. It's a bit spicy. There is a bit of an idea of a bit like something like tobacco in here. Some people say it's kind of like a combination of Leighton and Herod together, which I quite like. I like that because I like both Herod and also Leighton. I prefer Herod over Leighton, but the fact that this is kind of reminding me of those two fragrances together. So there's definitely an idea of cohesion here, something that is an offspring of the other fragrances sort of thing. But in the end, this is like a beastlier version of those two, and I absolutely love it. So it's Carlisle from the house of Parfums de Marly. If you don't know that one, do check it out. So as I said, the further we go to the top of the list, the stronger the fragrances are going to get. The next one is from the house of Maison Francis Kurkdjian. It's Baccarat Rouge 540 in the Extrait de Parfum concentration. This to me is super intense, and what I like about this one is the trail, the sillage, the projection, and all that kind of stuff. You can smell people walking towards you from far away with this stuff on, and also it leaves a great trail. So it's got great longevity. It's super sexy. It's got the Ambergris Ambroxan combo. There's almondy note in here. There's saffron. There's some musky touches, ambery touches. It's a fantastic fragrance, and you know, I think it's a fragrance that's very recognizable now. It's been overused and overcloned and all that kind of stuff, but I still think this DNA is super sexy. What do you guys think? It's Maison Francis Kurkdjian's Baccarat Rouge 540 into Extrait de Parfum concentration. Next, going to a house called AMOUROUD. It's Sunset Oud, this one right here. First off, I should say, if you haven't, experienced the fragrances of AMOUROUD, you definitely should, especially if you like fragrances that are intense, long-lasting, beast mode, and things like that. This is Sunset Oud. It's very oody with leather. There's ambery touches for sure. There's resins like myrrh here. Of course, there's lots of woods. Vetiver kind of has a grassiness and things like that, or earthiness for sure. But along the way, you'll also experience lavender and tobacco flower. Definitely a really great oud. Even though I'm saying I'm a bit bored of oud, I think this one is oud plus other things to make it a little exciting rather than just focusing on that oud note. So it makes for a more interesting wear here rather than just, doing an oud. Whereas this one has the amber, the resins, the vetiver, the lavender, tobacco flower. Great smell. This is Sunset Oud from the house of AMOUROUD. Next, Electimus London's Octavian. This one right here. You familiar with this one? This is super sexy to me. To me, it reminds me of a Portrait of a Lady type fragrance with a little bit of the night. So both of them are Frederic Malle fragrances. Both of them are Dominique Ropiam fragrances, and I feel like they've taken Portrait of a Lady, combined it with a little bit of the night, and added some other things in here. Like they've added cumin in here, or there's a cumin-like presence here, which gives it a sweaty vibe, along with the Portrait of a Lady vibe, along with the animalic touches of the oud from the night. So it's a great fragrance, very long-lasting, super amazing, created by Christian Provenzano, and it's one of my favorite fragrances from the house of Electimus London. So it's Octavian from Electimus London. Check it out if you don't know it. If you do like fragrances like Portrait of a Lady in the night, definitely you must get your nose on that. But I must warn you that that cumin note is pretty prominent. So next, it's the house of Unique Luxury. It's Crush on Me, this one right here. One of the best combinations of patchouli and caramel together. You can totally experience them separate, even though they're kind of combined and, connected and melded together to create a fragrance. When I wear this one, I can totally experience the patchouli on its own and the caramel on its own. The caramel is sticky, gooey, sweet, and caramel-like, of course, because it's a gourmand note. The patchouli is more like the patchouli that you find, not in psychedelic, but like Tempo from Diptyque, so it's a bit on the green side. So it makes for a very interesting combo, whereas you're going to think patchouli, yeah, chocolatey or chocolate cakey. This one's not that kind of a patchouli, which makes for an interesting wear. Along the way, you'll also have ginger, lime, and amber with this one. Great scent from the house of Unique Luxury, very long-lasting. Next, going to the house of Maître Parfumé Gantier, Ambre Mythique, this one right here. Once again, just like the fragrance from NARCOTICA, Dulce Diablo, this is also similar to that. There's this very interesting cloud when you spray it. It does have the weird way it just climbs and flows in the air, goes up your nostrils and everything. So, and your mouth, if your mouth is open, you're talking and things like that. So be careful with this fragrance because it's super intense and very long lasting, and also super powdery. Like it's intense, overly intense, but it has notes of labdanum, myrrh, vanilla, lavender, aromatic spiciness here, vanillic touches for sure, resins, and then the labdanum is what's creating the amber. This is totally different than their most famous Ambre Perso. Ambre Perso is a really great fragrance. I chose this one because this one is really much more potent than the other. And the fact that it has this, you know, kind of like slithering way to get inside your nose and mouth and everything like that, I just kind of, those are the kind of fragrances I consider very, very beastly and intense. But if you haven't tried this one, definitely get your nose on it. It's quite nice. Definitely a different kind of amber, whereas it's the same kind of fragrance, but they're going in different directions when you're comparing it to their other fragrance, Ambre Perso. So this is Ambre Mythique from the house of the Maître Parfum Ed Gantier. By the way, that brand is now sold at San Francisco's ZGO Perfumery. I'm so happy that the brand is finally here in San Francisco. Those of you that have been wanting to get your noses on them, you can go check them out over there at that store in San Francisco. So while I'm waiting to get my nose on Mancera's Intense Red Tobacco, I am featuring the original here, Red Tobacco, the original, because I still find it to be pretty potent and intense. I can only imagine what the intense version is going to be like. Is it going to go up way up at the top of the list? We don't know yet. I haven't sampled it. But Red Tobacco is pretty intense on its own. So do they need to make it even more further intense? This is tobacco, vanilla, cinnamon, oud, patchouli, saffron, and incense, and could come off a bit overwhelming to some people. It's really, really potent. Lots of cinnamon. It does have a bit of a holiday-ish vibe. There's a fruitiness in there. I believe there's some apples in this as well. Leathery touches, smoky touches. Red Tobacco. Basically, it's red hot because it does have cinnamon. So it's Red Tobacco from the house of Mancera. If you're a fan of that, do let me know. Next, going to the house of Étalé Orange is Rien Intense Incense. Probably the most animalic fragrance in this list of fragrances in today's video. If you're into old school fragrances like Kouros and things like that, when it first launched back in the 80s, you got to get your nose on this if you haven't. This is the more potent version of Rien. There's a Rien Intense Incense. This is incense, leather, aldehydes, oak moss, and labdanum. It's interesting, when I read the notes, they do sort of kind of remind me of the notes of Kouros. Kouros has aldehydes, Kouros has oak moss, Kouros has, I believe, incense as well. No, Kouros has leather for sure, but that fragrance also had that castoreum note, so it was very animalic. I don't see that here, but the leather is a bit on the funky side to begin with. Perhaps they are using some kind of an accord that smells like castoreum or whatever, because this can be a bit funky and also a bit like Kouros, the original, but a great scent. Totally takes me back to the early days of when I was like a teenager, you know, sampling fragrances like Kouros and things like that. But either way, Rien Intense Incense from the house of Étalé Orange, probably one of the best from that house. Next, going to the house of AMOUROUD, it's Interlude 53. Interlude 53 is super, super potent. It's an extrait de parfum concentration. Those are the most concentrated forms of perfumes, parfum, extrait, extract, whatever. Those are the longest lasting for me, at least in most cases. But this is a fragrance that is the extract version of the original with Opoponax, amber, frankincense, oregano, pimento berry, labdanum, oud, leather, patchouli, and sandalwood. It's basically taking the original, which I felt like had gone through a reformulation. It was thinned down. This is the most luxurious, most fatty form of that fragrance, full on in your face. A great fragrance, Interlude 53. I feel like Interlude Man was one of the most original fragrances because of the combination of the oregano with the incensey ambery notes. It's a dry, dark amber. And again, I mentioned it was thinned down with the original. That version is super, super luxurious. But next, moving on to the house of Marc-Antoine Barrois. This is B683 Extrait. So there's Ganymede Extrait that came out earlier this year. I felt like it was definitely beefier than the original, but it doesn't compare to B683 Extrait. This is a beast compared to that one. This one also is animalic. It does have that kind of cuminy touch. Super amazing with the oud, saffroline for saffrony touches. And then you've got violet leaf absolute, or ozonic. For me, B683 does have a bit of a DNA of Ganymede, and even though B683 first came out, then Ganymede came out, then B683 Extrait came out, and I felt like both of them were offsprings of one another. Not as masculine. the Ganymede is not as masculine as B683. But this stuff, the extract version, it's so super potent, super long lasting, very intense, and a bit animalic, sweaty as well. So that's B683 Extrait. If you don't know that one, do check it out. Next fragrance, going to the house of Sospiro. This has become one of my favorite fragrances, discovery of this year. This is Dolce Melodia. Absolutely love it. Very, very long lasting, but also on the sweet, super floral, ambery, fruity side. Absolutely delicious, and a compliment garnerer for me as well, with gardenia, mandarin, vanilla, white musk, sandalwood, orange, pear, black currant. If you haven't gotten your nose on this one, please do. It's one of my favorite fragrances of this year. It does lean a bit feminine, but man, the longevity is out of this world, and again, does garner me compliments. It's out of this world amazing. So Dolce Melodia from the house of Sospiro. If you haven't tried it yet, please do. Up next, I've got a layering duo, the layering duo that I always recommend to you guys. It's Nichané's Hachivat with Nichané's 100 Silent Ways. The fragrances on their own are totally different, with Hachivat being the pineapple, oakmoss, woodsy notes, patchouli, grapefruit, bergamot thing. 100 Silent Ways, on the other hand, is warmer, fruitier with vanilla, sandalwood, peaches, gardenia, tuberose, and orris. And I feel like the two together, it's a nuclear bomb. It's intoxicatingly delicious, very, very long lasting, super, super sexy. The combination is super intoxicating. I mean, they're great fragrances on their own. The Nishan Hachivat is a bit on the screechy, metallic, woody side. And of course, the creaminess of the 100 Silent Ways totally balances out each other. Really, really great, wonderful combination. If you don't know this combo, definitely try it out and come back and let me know, because I think it smells super sexy and I absolutely love it, and I do recommend it quite a bit. The next fragrance, going to the house of Ramon Behar. It's Deep Amber Extrait, this one right here. So this one, I've mentioned, it's a bit on the kind of religious experience wise. It's such a super intense amber fragrance. It's a bit smoky, it's a bit dark and resinous, and that's almost like a church amber is what I get from it. And as I'm mentioning, it's very religious to me. I don't know why. It reminds me of church. Let me go ahead and quickly spray it so I can tell you a little bit more about it. First off, it's super, super potent and intense. Absolutely love that about it. But there's definitely lightly sweaty, lightly ambery kind of muskiness in there as well, but in the end it's very, very smoky, and I feel like it's amber with church resins and incense kind of like lit up next to it, and you're getting all of this combined together. So I guess I would say this is a bit animalic, but mostly it's very resinous and ambery. It's an amber. It's called Deep Amber with an overdose of smoky labdanum, styrax smoky as well. The amber extreme is, I think, the molecular synthetic note in here, but benzoin and amber together, it's a top-notch amber fragrance. Very, very long-lasting, and again, for me, it's a religious experience. I don't know why. This is Deep Amber from the house of Ramon Behar. That's an Extrait de Parfum concentration. And speaking of Extrait de Parfum concentration, we have a fragrance from the house of Tiziana Terenzi, and this has become a real favorite of mine. I don't know what it is about this fragrance. It gives me warmth. It totally gives me the warm feeling. It's Hail Bop from Tiziana Terenzi, and it does smell a bit like Chanel's Le Lion, but more sweeter, more ambery in sweetness rather than dark and smokiness like the Le Lion gets. This is amber, labdanum, vanilla, cinnamon, and geranium. Such a great longevity. It has a cozy vibe, even though it's totally, totally beast mode and over the top. If you haven't tried this, do try it. I think he did a great job with this one, even though it's kind of inspired by Le Lion. But as I said, it doesn't have that animalic quality that Le Lion does. This one, to me, is more like a, I wouldn't say it's gourmand, but kind of going towards gourmand amber. So Hail Bop from the house of Tiziana Terenzi. Wonderful offering. In fact, after I'm done with this video, I'm going to wear that fragrance. But moving on to the house of Maison Crivelli, it's Patchouli Magnetic. As I said, the fragrances are getting stronger and stronger and stronger, so longer lasting, room fillers and things like that. And this is also a compliment garnerer for me. It's gardenia, patchouli, sandalwood, benzoin, white peach, vanilla leather. First of all, there's this kind of a warm humidity with this one with the gardenia note. It's like super, super humid gardenia. There's a creamy lactonic vibe about this one as well. And it does have that fruitiness. And then, of course, it's all about the patchouli. The patchouli is so, so strong, intense, in-your-face patchouli. So this fragrance can come off a bit off-putting to some people, but I absolutely love it. And again, as I said, it does garner me compliments for some reason, because when I wear it on me for a bit, and then I'm moving around with somebody, they get a whiff of it and they say, what are you wearing? Again, this is my favorite of the 3 red colored bottles. Patchouli Magnetic is so amazing for me compared to Hibiscus Mahajad or the Ambre Chromatique. But for some reason, I think Hibiscus Mahajad is the most popular. But either way, try this one. Get a sample. I think it's super amazing. That is Patchouli Magnetic from the house of Maison Crivelli. We've got only a few more fragrances left. This is a brand spanking new one I'm going to talk to you about. And again, a room filler. A little goes a long way. This is from a house called Salas. It's Piccadilly Memorial, this one right here. First off, it does remind me a little bit of the house of Parfums de Nicolai Patchouli Intense. It reminds me of that a little bit. But this one seems like that fragrance, but sweet overdose at the same time. So it's Patchouli, Labdanum, Mysore Sandalwood, Musk, Vanilla, Iris, Rose, Blackcurrant, and Citruses. Just imagine Patchouli Intense and some sweetness added to it, but more robust and potent. It's Extrait de Parfum. And again, I've sprayed this in this room, and it's a room filler. Not as much as Followed, which is right after this, which I find to be the most nuclear fragrance ever. But this is getting close there. I mean, the room stays with that smell for quite a long time. So it's definitely really, really super potent. If you like the idea of Patchouli Intense from the house of Parfums de Nicolai and you want it more sweeter and more robust, potent, and nuclear, definitely try Salas Piccadilly Memorial. What a long-lasting fragrance. Super, super intense. And last but not least, don't forget the 2 bonus options. I've got Kerosene's Followed. And for me, once again, as soon as I grab the bottle, I can smell the fragrance on this bottle. I don't even have to open the damn fragrance. It's so strong. I've mentioned this to in many videos and to a lot of people. This thing fills a room and does not disappear. My jacket still smells like this, and I sprayed it earlier in the year, like around January, February. And no, actually, I would say March. That's when I first started really talking about this. It's coffee, cocoa, caramel, maple syrup, vanilla, amber. It's basically like maple syrup breakfast coffee kind of a thing, but doesn't disappear. The fragrance also, like the other several fragrances I mentioned, it goes everywhere. So it falls on your clothes and it will not get off of your clothes for a long time. Like, it fell on my jeans. I had to dry clean them several times to even get that smell off. And my jacket, I can still smell it since March. But it's a really, really intense fragrance. A little goes a long way. And like everybody says, it literally follows you. This is Followed from the house of Kerosene. And I would consider that the most nuclear fragrance. Be warned with that one. Be careful when wearing it. Anyway, those are the fragrances I'm talking about today. Those are the most intense, super potent, nuclear beast mode fragrances. Perfect for winter wear, right? Let me know which nuclear fragrances that you're a fan of that I did not speak about today. Put a comment down below so I can find out. And thanks so much for watching, guys. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video, please share it, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Just to let you know, tomorrow is the official drop of Scent Club number 8, the last Scent Club of the year, and the last Scent Club for quite some time. So be prepared for that one. We're not releasing too many kits, so it's going to run out very, very quickly. So Scent Club number 8 dropping tomorrow, featuring 3 amazing fragrances: Smoky Vanilla, Gourmand Fig, beautiful, bright, sexy tea fragrance. Anyway, see you guys later. Bye-bye. And as promised, I've got 2 bonus options here, and you can use these to enhance your nuclear fragrances to make them even more explosive. First off, Leather Eyes. Leather Eyes is a fragrance on its own, but man, if you use it to enhance some fragrances, you're going to have an explosion. It's actually a very realistic smelling leather fragrance. To me, it really smells like a leather shoe shop or a leather manufacturing company that, you know, is manufacturing shoes and things like that. It's basically a fragrance, and it does say enhancer on there as well, as you can see. And yeah, give it some leather, add it to a fragrance. Maybe try it with Baccarat Rouge. Maybe try it with Mancera's Red Tobacco. What's going to come of it? Explosive, right? And then finally, Sugar Addict. This is also a sweetener, fragrance sweetener On its own, this stuff is so long lasting. If you want to add it to something like Baccarat Rouge, it'll sweeten it up, give it more potency. Add it to something else, you know? I think it's going to be perfect. You can even add it to Raw Gold. A lot of these fragrances you can totally do with this one. I think it'll really work wonderfully. So basically, this is more sugary sweet. You can wear it on its own as a skin scent, but like I said, add it to a fragrance and to make it more explosive. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys. Stay tuned for another video tomorrow. Bye-bye.